All right, so I am John with Uma, and I'm here to talk about one of our newer products that we came out with this year called oSnap, which you can use to actually decentralize your DAO, and then also talk about how you can modify it for some really cool hackathon projects that use natural language rules. So a problem that a lot of DAOs have is that they're voting on snapshot, and then they have a multi-sig that actually executes the transactions on-chain. So you have this point of weird centralization where you had a whole bunch of people come together to vote, but then what actually happens is controlled by just a handful of people that have these admin permissions. And a lot of DAOs realize that that's a big problem. So oSnap's been really popular, especially with DeFi protocols, and I'll go through some examples and explain how it works. So first off, UMA is an optimistic oracle. And the way that that basically works is you can bring any kind of data on chain. You're saying this statement is true, and also here's a bond, take my money if the statement is wrong. And there's a challenge window where anybody can show up and they have that financial incentive to dispute you if you are wrong. So there are people that are watching these proposals 24/7 looking for disputable proposals. There's also a lot of very bot-driven flows for some of the products that are built on top of UMA. And it makes it super flexible because you could have things that are human reviewable, you could have things that are bot reviewable, and you can build all kinds of products with it. So what it can actually do, a lot of people think about oracles as being this price feed style thing where you have a network of nodes that have to reach consensus on some data before pushing it on chain. But what it really is like a truth machine. You're trying to record some truths about the world onto blockchains, and the optimistic oracle mechanism makes it really flexible to record basically any kind of truth as long as it's publicly verifiable. And we kind of like walk through that. One thing I didn't mention is it adds some recourse to contracts. A lot of the issues that come up with oracles are if like the data is wrong, that a bunch of nodes came to consensus on some data that is wrong in some way, that could cause a lot of damage to a protocol. With an optimistic oracle, you don't have that kind of issue. Like if you are dealing with price data, for instance, it might be that a market's being manipulated. And if that goes on chain, you can actually dispute that and say like, hey, this bot, it read the price data from the data source, but this is a manipulated market. It's not the true price. And that makes it really interesting for those types of use cases. So what goes into it, you have some kind of contract, some protocol that's requesting data. They've preset a bunch of parameters like here's what the minimum bond is going to be. Here's what the challenge window is going to be. Maybe here's a reward for posting the data. You have some kind of process for resolving the disputes. So disputes are really rare because of the bonding mechanism. But if it does come up, it goes to a vote of all the UMA token holders, and it's kind of a shelling point game where you commit a secret vote on chain of what you think the truth is. You can't see what other people are voting, so you can't just copy answers. The most likely shelling point is going to be the truth. And you get rewarded only if you're actually going with that majority. And you need to have some kind of methodology of saying what the truth is. Like, what is this question? And it needs to be really explicit because otherwise people aren't going to even come up and make a proposal. They're not going to risk a bond on like a wishy-washy, ambiguous question because they might lose it. And you need to have some economic guarantees that bound the cost of manipulating the system. How much would it cost you to try to mount an attack on this oracle system? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I won't go into a ton of detail on that in this talk, so I want to get into oSnap, but come by the UMA booth this weekend if you're curious about that. So it can work for all kinds of questions. Polymarket uses us, so you can do natural language prediction market stuff. You can do insurance protocols. You can do on-chain derivatives. You can do like different fundraising mechanisms. You can verify a whole bundle of cross-chain data, which is what Across does. Across is our sister protocol that's built on top of UMA that's done about $2 billion of bridging volume between different roll-up chains. And it uses UMA to verify that all the relayers are getting refunded correctly on those chains. Yeah, kind of going through that. All these things are like live in production, pretty easy to spin up. We have tutorials for all of these, so if you're interested in any of these topics, you can do it. But we'll focus on optimistic governance, how oSnap works, and how it could be modified for cool hackathon projects too. So this is that flow I was talking about. Like you talk on the forums and like everybody's involved there and it's free to do. You have a snapshot vote. That's also free. So everybody that has a token or like has some voting permissions can participate. But then there's just a jump off point where like, okay, the DAO is actually run by this multi-sig and it's just like 3 of 5 people decide what actually happens. So that's a huge, huge problem. I mean, it's like, it removes that decentralization and we've seen a lot of adoption from DeFi protocols because they're the most concerned about that centralization risk. There's like a lot of negatives associated with that. So with oSnap, you can still vote on Snapshot. So you don't have to pay for gas on chain. You don't have to do like these delegated voting schemes. You can vote gas free. Transactions that are approved, they're validated by the Oracle, and then they're automatically executed. Anyone can dispute the transaction, and it's usually like a long challenge window. It's like a 1 to 3 day challenge window in this case, because DAOs aren't in that much of a hurry. Depending on your Oracle integration, you might want to have just a couple of hours if you need something done fast, like Polymarket. It's a 2-hour challenge window. With oSnap, it's 1 to 3 days. And then the truth is economically incentivized, and you can set it up in under a minute, actually. So if you have this pattern where you have a safe multi-sig on-chain and you have a snapshot space, I did a speed run. You can actually do it in under a minute of adding oSnap, because it's this really lightweight module you attach to a safe, and then a plugin that you add to your snapshot space, and that's it. That's the entire thing. And now your DAO is like decentralized. The multi-sig does not have to get involved in actually executing things. So we're getting a lot of adoption. I had to add a bunch of logos to this one today. So we've got CowSwap, Connects, Premia, L2 DAO, Across, Shapeshift, Barnbridge, Lossless, Plus DAO. And you can kind of see that theme that I was talking about with DeFi protocols. There's a ton of regulatory and legal scrutiny. Like, people do not want to be multi-sig signers on a DeFi protocol. So it's securing, I think, I said over 100 million. It's close to 100 million. I was exaggerating on that slide a little bit, but it's growing really rapidly. And we think it's found a really good fit. And this is just kind of the flow. You deploy the module, just a really small contract. It's like 100 lines, just a lot of comments mainly. You attach it to your safe. You're setting the parameters. We've got some defaults. The defaults are just like a 2WETH bond that you have to post as a proposal bond. But we'll get into how that's kind of automated and some services we run around that. You create a snapshot proposal like normal, but you can attach transactions to it. So when you have our oSnap plugin there, you can actually define specifically what transactions you're approving. You're not counting on the multi-sig signers to read what you voted through and then like figure out what the transactions are and execute them. You see what they are and you build them. And then if it passes, either the transactions are going to be proposed on chain, and after a day or 2 or 3, they'll be executed, or they'll be proposed and there's a dispute because maybe it didn't pass on Snapshot and it's actually somebody trying to like do something they're not allowed to do, in which case it gets disputed and it's basically like thrown away. You don't have to rely on the UMA token holders here exactly, because UMA token holders cannot execute transactions against your DAO. Any disputed proposal is tossed. And it's using tools that are really familiar, just using a Gnosis safe, a cool little logo for the Zodiac framework for adding stuff to a Gnosis safe. There's all kinds of other cool Zodiac things that you should check out for the hackathon. Snapshot and UMA. And this is kind of like the walkthrough. It's pretty straightforward. If you go to uma.xyz/osnap, it'll have links to more docs for this, so I won't walk through all these steps. Links to like the videos showing how to set this up. But one thing I would add is, once you deploy, if you're doing custom rules, and I'll get into that, just modify the rules that are in your contract. So instead of the rules saying like, here are the rules around Snapshot, you could say like, here are the rules for how I want this safe to behave. Maybe I'm putting my personal funds into this safe. I want an automated investing strategy, or I want some safeguards. Like, I got a Bored Ape in there. I would never transfer it. If it's being transferred, it's being stolen. So like, block that transaction. You can add any custom natural language written rules that you want for your hackathon projects. And definitely contact us if you're like doing a deployment for an actual DAO that you're involved in too, or something else. Kind of just showing what it looks like. Circling the oSnap module in Zodiac. This is in like the safe interface. You like add the Zodiac app to your safe and then click the button for the oSnap module. It'll deploy with the defaults and you're pretty much ready to go there. Yeah, here are like some defaults. You enter your snapshot space URL. This rules parameter, like this natural language written thing, that's what's going to be enforceable with the Oracle. And it'll just plug in the values that you put in there. And there's a bunch of boilerplate too, like, what if your snapshot admin went rogue and they set like a quorum of 1 and a voting period of 1 minute and they passed it? Like, it's not going to be valid because it's not meeting the minimum voting period and quorum that you set here. Like, the Oracle will check that. It'll get disputed. If Snapshot itself became evil and they're like censoring your votes, and like this is a notorious thing that Snapshot is now doing, that also can't just transfer tokens from your DAO or something. All those extra rules are there for that. And this is actually automated now. So we have like a V2. It is basically a bot that Risk Labs runs, because we know that it's a hassle to post a 2 WETH bond to make a proposal, and like a hassle to go back and execute it after the proposal challenge window is over. So we just have a bot that we run that does this on your behalf. It watches your snapshot space. We know all of the oSnap deployments that are out there, so we can monitor them. And we'll make the proposal, and after a couple of days, we'll execute the proposal for you too. And we actually cover the gas. Like, unless your DAO is doing a ton of contract deployments or something and it's starting to get expensive, we're happy to cover the gas for whatever token transfers. We just want to make this as easy as possible to use. And the bot doesn't have any special permissions. Like, if the bot is offline, you can click the buttons yourself in the snapshot interface to do it. And anybody can dispute it too. If the bot got something wrong, go in and dispute it and take Risk Labs money. Enjoy. Yeah, and these just like extras. It's all audited. You can set it up on a ton of different chains. It's really beginner friendly. You don't need to write any code for it. You don't have to go to the command line for any of this. Like, if you're just setting up a DAO as just a person who's interested in DAOs, you can deploy your snapshot space and your safe and your oSnap module and everything else and understand how the module works without writing any code. You can deploy a token too. I mean, you can do like the whole Open Zeppelin governor module and like deploy a token, do the whole like end-to-end process without ever writing any code, which is kind of cool. And we got some new stuff coming out soon too. We're going to have a native safe app just for oSnap, and a snapshot plugin that is going to improve the transaction builder and make the whole experience nicer. And then this is kind of more of the hackathon thing. So you can think of oSnap as a specific product, a specific use case for this optimistic governor contract. What makes it oSnap are the wraparound things like the snapshot integration and this set of rules specific to snapshot. But you could write all kinds of rules that do all kinds of things. Instead of writing a smart contract where it's enforcing in code all of the things that this safe or this contract can do, you can write something that just is human readable and makes sense and say, this is the way this safe behaves. Here's the incentives around it. Something simple like if you said, I want to sell ETH if it like goes above $2,000 and like stays there for at least an hour. And if you go and sell this ETH for me, you can take like, $2 worth of ETH out of my safe. Write that out literally just how I said it. That seems reasonable enough. That's interpretable by the Oracle. Attach that as your new set of rules for your oSnap module. You've now created a different product. It's like not a snapshot thing anymore. You've created this product around like automated ETH investing. You could add like any kind of set of rules you want. And that's kind of where the creativity comes in, because again, you did this like 1 minute kind of deploy thing. You've got the safe. You just got to figure out what the rules are. And like, why would this be a product people would actually want to use? I think that makes it really cool and open-ended, and it's nice for like a weekend hackathon because it's quick to deploy. And if you come up with the idea and you can write down the idea clearly, you kind of have half of the product already. You save yourself writing a lot of code. Like, the sentences are being enforced rather than coming up with code that does everything. And you can maybe focus on the front end stuff and like other aspects of it. So it's really our most advanced form of generalized contracting. You can like write these contractual agreements in human readable language, and you can enforce them on chain with the Oracle checking that everything is being done correctly. So you can get maximum flexibility with minimal trust. And here's like a link. DM me on Twitter or come by the booth. We'll be there pretty much all weekend. And there's a lot of other stuff too. I mean, like, we've got prediction market tutorials, insurance tutorials, just like general data assertions. You can build derivatives with us. You can like do a lot of cool stuff with our cross-chain bridge. So it's not just about oSnap. It's just like a newer thing that we're very excited about and think raises a lot of possibilities for new products you can build at the hackathon. But that is all for me.